Hello, and welcome back to 7 Minutes of Sport. Now, if you've made it this far, then firstly, thank you for sticking with us. It is actually our last episode for the season, and just like season one, we've been so grateful, not just to the guests who've given up their time to come and chat with me, but also to all of you listeners for your support at home. But fear not, as not only will we be back for a season three at some point, but we also have a fantastic guest lined up for today's episode. Now, this is a pre-record, but if my calculations are right, this episode should be being released 3 days after Sunday's Olympic closing ceremony. And I already know, as it happens to me every 4 years, that I'm going to be missing turning on the TV to watch what's on. So for those like me who have an Olympic-sized hole to fill in their life, you will be pleased to know that I do have sat in front of me a woman who has actually refereed at the Olympics herself. She has the most remarkable career, which includes currently being the head of operations and governance of the Premier League. But I'm not actually going to be asking her questions about that today, as up until recently, she was also Ice Hockey UK's referee in chief and an International Ice Hockey Federation officiating coach and instructor. Now, hopefully, I have all of my information right. If I have, she made her debut as an IIHF official in 2004, and by 2006, she was already refereeing at the Olympics in Turin. She then went on to referee in multiple Women's World Championships, as well as multiple Olympic Games, including refereeing alone at the 2014 Olympic Women's Hockey Gold Medal game between Canada and the United States. So this is someone who really is the epitome of determination, resilience, and hard work. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Joy Johnston. So Joy, hello, and welcome to the podcast.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for welcoming me on. Listening to you say it all, I'm like, wow, yeah, that actually is all true. I have done that and I have refereed at the Olympics, and it's probably worth me saying it's ice hockey. So it was at the Winter Olympics, because most of the listeners will probably associate the Olympics much more with the Summer Olympics and what we see as the field hockey. So no, my sport's ice hockey and it features at the Winter Olympics.
Olympics is Olympics.
Yes.
Now, I have the timer here, and as we know, I put 7 minutes on it. If we go a bit over, that's absolutely fine. But just to direct the conversation. So the only thing I have left to ask is, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Fabulous. In which case, can you start by just explaining to the listeners how you became an ice hockey referee?
Yes, I wanted to learn how to skate. I went to the ice rink, I looked at ice hockey and I looked at figure skating. My dad was really supportive of me doing ice hockey. I started to play. There were no referees turning up. So he took the referee course and he told me that I had to go on it with him. So I was sort of forced. But then I was playing and refereeing at the same time, and turned out I was better at refereeing than I was at playing.
Very happy coincidence. And how did you progress to become an ice hockey referee at the Winter Olympic Games to get to that level?
So your national federation makes a recommendation for a license for an international, like to the international federation. So I got selected by the national federation, which was English Ice Hockey and Ice Hockey UK, to have a license with the international federation. The international federation then assign you to a international tournament and have someone come and watch you. And they watch you, they grade you, and then year on year, you either go up a level, down a level, or you don't get a championship. And
Wow.
I went up a level, up a level, up a level, until I got to the Olympics.
Wow, so consistently being tested, really.
Yeah.
Now, in the 2014 Winter Olympic Games, you refereed that final alone, and that was the last time someone actually refereed an Olympic final solo. How did you deal with the pressure that came alongside refereeing such a big event by yourself?
Yeah, so the refereeing is the same as what people will be familiar with football. You have a referee and then you have two linesmen, and now they've transitioned to have two referees and two linesmen, so you get to share the pressure of giving out penalties and awarding goals and things. I guess I didn't know any different in 2014, like we'd only ever done it as one single referee and two linesmen, and it was my job to do. So I I just handled the pressure in the same way I did for every other game. It was just another game of hockey that at the end of it, someone was going to win a medal that they wanted, and someone was going to get the silver medal.
Did you find that there was a difference in pressure when that rule came in, introducing a second referee, even though you were used to just being by yourself?
I think the refereeing team has always been a team anyway. So you have the referee and the two linesmen. So I never felt alone when I was a single referee with two linesmen. I had two linesmen, and that was the officiating team. I think when they introduced the second referee, it does share the pressure, but it also brings additional challenges because your judgment has to be consistent with the judgment of your partner.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you're on the same page, you're seeing things the same, you're explaining things the same, and you're also not judging things differently in the moment. So actually there's probably additional pressure of teamwork that I probably didn't have to worry about. I was the only one calling penalties, so it was just my judgment and my judgment alone that had to be consistent, whereas with the two you have to be consistent between the two of you.
But that's really interesting. That was something that I wouldn't have thought about unless asking. Now, in this season, we've discussed match official abuse in various different sports. Is that an issue that ice hockey referees, including yourself, have experienced or have trouble with?
Hugely. I think in any sport, if you become a referee, you have to have hard skin, and you have to be accepting that there will be some frustration and you will get some abuse. There are penalties that you can give out for abuse in ice hockey. They're probably not as strict as in other sports. Like I really like rugby, where you get to move the play back if there's abuse, and that they obviously have quite a degree of respect for referees, calling them sir and that kind of things. That doesn't happen in ice hockey, and I certainly got a lot of abuse as an official, but probably also as a female.
Yeah.
And I just had a couple of rules about abuse where I would tolerate to a degree because it's part of the game and you have to accept that people will be frustrated. But my rules were, if it was loud and everyone could hear it, then I had to do something about it. I could have just let it go. If it was personal, so if it was about my gender, or anything about me as an individual, my relationships, people that my family, that kind of thing, then I would penalise it. And if someone called me a cheat, then I would penalise it, because questioning the integrity of a referee for me is the worst thing you can do. I may be terrible and I may get a call wrong, but I'm certainly not doing it on purpose. So those are my rules about if I got abused. Otherwise, if it was just sort of very quietly someone telling me they didn't agree with my decision, then I would probably let it go.
Now, in April, for those who do follow ice hockey, people would have seen that an ice hockey referee was knocked out in an accidental collision with a Tampa Bay player and had to be stretchered out of the arena. Are there any safeguards in place to reduce the risk of injury to referees mid-game?
Yeah, so I mean, we all wear protection, and like that can range in terms of what individuals want to wear as referees and what they feel comfortable wearing. But definitely like padding around sort of like the chest, the back, lower body. And so you're protected out there, but it is a contact sport and you are on the field of play, like you're on the ice surface. Yeah. And so I guess the biggest protection is being in the right place and not in the way. And that probably comes down to experience and positioning, but there are times where you will get hit with a puck, or you will get hit by players, and it's just sort of part of the job to be out there and deal with it.
The idea of being hit by a puck has just made me wince. Sounds
Yes.
incredibly painful and not something I want to experience.
Pretty painful, and actually quite often when that happens, the players shout at you to get out of the way, as if like you have thrown yourself in front of it deliberately. And I had some awful bruises in my time, and you just think I didn't do that deliberately because it really hurts.
Don't think many people would.
No.
Now, for a lot of people listening, ice hockey may be best associated with North America. Do you know what the size of ice hockey in the UK is at the moment?
No, so when I was referee in chief, I know that we had about 320 referees that covered the whole country, and about 24,000 players. So it's quite a small sport in comparison to other sports, and largely dictated by the facilities that are available, because you can only play ice hockey on an ice rink, and so you need an ice rink, whereas other sports that are more open access, like football, it just needs a bit of grass somewhere. It is much easier to play. So obviously has much more, is much bigger in terms
Of
of
course.
participants. Yeah.
Now that does lead actually very perfectly into my last question, which would be, what would you say to anyone who would consider going into ice hockey refereeing?
Absolutely give it a go. It's a fantastic sport. If you don't play it, then there's no barrier to becoming a referee. You can certainly learn the rules and get involved. I think it also, being a referee in ice hockey, the same as with any sports, gives you lots of transferable skills. Teamwork, as we talked about, communication, judgment, handling pressure, lots of things that are life skills that will transcend into other aspects of your life as well. So absolutely give it a go.
Skills that will serve you forever.
Yeah.
Well, Joy, that does bring us to the end of the question. So thank you so much for coming to chat with me today. I've really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed sharing my experiences with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And for those who may want to know a little bit more about Joy, there is actually a fantastic piece on her in the International Ice Hockey Federation website, which was actually written only this year. So you can go online and have a read of that. But sadly, not only have we come to the end of this episode, but to the end of the season. So this is my shameless plug time. But if you do like what you listen to, please do go on Spotify and give us a 5-star review. The support does mean a lot to us. But for now, keep well, keep safe, and we'll see you in season 3.